Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to never miss an update.
If their
Right.
assumption with respect to the organization is that the organization is worried about my growth because it is my growth that leads to the development of the organization, versus if I am there thinking that the organization is there to exploit me and gain the maximum advantage out of me, I behave very, very differently.
Hello and welcome everyone. This definitely doesn't look like our usual workplace because it's not. In the midst of this global lockdown, we have also been forced to think how we can continue providing the content that you all love. Professor Jain has joined IIM Rohtak in the last year and currently is stuck in the campus. Going to the campus is not something that we could have done, so we reached out to him to try and understand what makes Professor Jain a favorite among the students in this episode of the Professor of the Year. There is a general sense of fear, as we mentioned, in a lot of workers, that their jobs might just go with automation coming in. I think here is where organizations collectively should actually sensitize them better. Do you think that is something that needs to be thought through by the companies in the coming years?
So if your assumption is that people are there to contribute to the work environment, your entire approach to managing people is very, very different. Right? Now, human resource management, right? If their approach is that operators, supervisors, frontline managers, all of these add value to the way work is done in organizations, right? They would want to incentivize them or provide them with recognitions to be able to do it. Whereas if your assumption is people are costs in the organization and not assets in the organization, you will have a completely different picture in terms of what you want to do with the people.
How do you think the future leaders, the future managers should look into it?
One of the key ideas that came out of my research was around human indispensability. And that idea was, we were working with a manufacturing multinational organization. I did a qualitative case-based kind of a research, visited 4 of their plants. And in several ways, several things emerged, right? One of the ideas was around human indispensability, wherein what we're seeing is, these operators, for instance, are able to listen to the machines, right? And are able to predict through the noise that these tools, these parts make on the machine, an approximate idea around when will these fail, or when could they potentially fail, under unforeseen circumstances, right? It is the operators, the engineers who've gained a lot of tacit knowledge by working in these areas for a very, very long time, right? They are able to bring some of this tacit knowledge while they're working, and some of it is completely irreplaceable, right? So when the engineers are designing these automation applications, what they told us was several of these ideas have come from the operators. But an individual, an operator, a supervisor, a frontline manager, for instance, knows a lot more, right? So it's called a Polanyi's paradox, wherein we know more than what we can tell. And it is this particular tacit knowledge that becomes very, very important when you're automating. You need the presence of humans to look at unforeseen circumstances. There were instances in the organization when the organization had to revert from a particular automation to a manual-based task again. The other thing that was really happening is automating requires a lot of collaboration from people. When you get into an organization, there is a lot of specialization. Maintenance happens on its own in a particular department. Engineering is working in a particular department, thinking about what are the improvements that they can suggest. The operators and supervisors are working on the floor, and there is a limited interaction that happens in them at an ongoing basis. If you are able to create an automation application which the operators are unwilling to accept, right, this will defeat the purpose completely. So you have to get a buy-in from the operator by understanding how he works, what he works on.
A lot of times we hear that we follow the employees first model. How true do you think that is in the Indian context, and what all work do we need to do in order to reach there, to actually make it an employee first organization?
So employees first model, if you were to look at it, it has to come from both the sides. One is, like I mentioned, the assumptions that we hold as the management, the assumptions that we hold around people is whether, people are naturally contributors to the organization, right?
Right.
Versus people are as costs. And, if need be, we have to minimize the costs in certain ways. So this is the first thing. The second is with respect to the people, how they orient themselves with respect to the organization that they work for. If their
Right.
assumption with respect to the organization is that, the organization is worried about my growth because it is my growth that leads to the development of the organization, versus if I am there, thinking that the organization is there to exploit me and gain the maximum advantage out of me, I behave very, very differently. So employee first model works from both the sides, right? It doesn't work from either one of the sides. It works, when they're in constant interaction all the time, right? And we have positive inclinations as to understanding each other's motivations, why we're there in the first place, and then looking at the development of the organization, which is very aligned to the development of the employees as such. When you put them all together, maybe there is an opportunity where employees first model will naturally emerge, and no one would have to emphasize or bring it from HCL Technologies and then cut, copy, paste into some other organization. It's to naturally evolve in organizations.
The entire world is on the verge of a global lockdown that we are facing. We are seeing companies after companies telling its people to actually stay at home and work from home. So do you think the role of the company HR becomes very important in these circumstances where they have to manage that, the services are there with everyone or not? How are they feeling if they are mentally in that condition to actually work? What are the kind of leadership skills that actually come into place in these tough times, which are actually managed by the people who are managing the people in the organization?
It's very, very important, like you said, people managers, right? Not necessarily only the human resource managers, right? Not just the HRM department. Anybody who is managing people in organization becomes a very, very critical aspect for everybody, right? In some way, it's like an organizational change. We are used to working in a particular environment, right? And that's what is happening in between the two of us also, right? This interview was supposed to happen in person, but this interview is happening in, let's say, mediated via technology. We're facing some kind of technical glitches, but the fact that, the two of us are here for a common purpose, helps us first align with it. And then, and it's very same for people managers, right? So there is a social anxiety that there is when you start working, when you start working from a particular format to another format. That is, not very technological anxiety per se, because that I think the IT department in the organization or the technology department in the organization would be taking care of. But it becomes very social in some instances, because let's say, when you're working from home, your professional boundaries and your home boundaries, your personal boundaries get mixed up. Your temporal boundaries get mixed up because there is no office time and there is no home time. One of the ideas is you can still ask people to separate the boundaries. Versus you tell them it's okay to have fuzzy boundaries. Because let's face it, right? When you are at home, there are several complications, requirements that are coming from various fronts, and you have to attend to them. As social beings, as human beings, you are catering to multiple requirements. Now, the idea is everyone is getting adjusted or readjusted to these fuzzy boundaries. As a manager, maybe I just need to tell them that it's okay to have this fuzzy boundary. I'm worried about performance a little bit. I'm worried about your anxiety a little bit, right? I'm worried about your sense of being and your contributions also to the organization. What I should do is extrapolate what I am going through to what my people are going through, and maybe help them make these adjustments a little better. Any organizational change, will have its own set of repercussions. Through having the right dialogue, speaking about it, talking about it, helping people resolve some of these issues at the beginning, maybe help them, do a little bit more in terms of helping people being comfortable with this via technology participation at the workplace. And we just cannot wait for everything to become perfect. We cannot wait for technology to become perfect one fine day. And then we will have this dialogue. It doesn't work that way. We have to continuously adapt to the technology benefits, to the interruptions that technology causes.
We actually talked about the technical aspect of how HR is actually going to pan out in the time to come. There is another thread that is looming large, which is the economic slump, which is quite it's on the door. Like, you can't just avoid it. You can see it. Like, at this point in time, what do you think is going through the employee's mind? How you are going to actually avoid the situation and take them in confidence and tell them, things will get better as the time goes.
But in a crisis, it is just not about giving confidence to people. It is also about exposing people to the threats that there are. There comes that moment wherein, we talked about, as a leader, as a manager, you let people know the uncertainties that there are, and that your willingness to be able to handle them collectively. See, the threat is there. There is an economic slump. Now the idea is, how do we tackle it collectively? There is a lot that lies in collective intelligence. Probably there are ideas that will come from the people when you really expose them to this kind of a risk, right? Will come ideas which are very, very profitable, which are very, very effective for the organization. What sometimes we miss out is we don't communicate enough. Because we don't know. The idea is, when we don't know, we can either choose not to communicate, or we can choose to be out there facing the uncertainty with them. I would bang on the second side, wherein I would say that, go out there and face the uncertainty with them. So authoritative leadership is what is their natural assumption about leadership, right? Telling others what to do, counseling others, coaching other people, mentoring other people, deciding on behalf of other people.